Hi, I'm Johnny from UltimatePaperMache.com, and I didn't intend to make this video, but some thunder woke me up about 4 o'clock this morning, and I decided, oh, what the heck, let's just go ahead and do it. I made a little sculpture, and all the time I was working on it, I thought I was doing really well. It was really working up until the very end, and then it didn't work at all. It was a total failure, basically. It just totally didn't work, and I'm going to show you why. A couple of weeks ago I told you that I wanted to make a character study, and I was going to use my new mannequin pattern. I printed another one about 60% of this, and so it was quite a lot smaller, just to make it a lot easier to and faster to sculpt my little guy. I wanted to use some ideas from this book because I wanted to kind of play around with some expressions, and I picked this one. Hopefully I can get this to focus. This little guy right there. I was going for a sad look. The mannequin worked really well as a form for a character study. I really liked that. The clay that I bought I had never used before, and I really liked it. It's a plastilina. It was really soft, so I thought not only would it be easy to move it around and make a fairly fast sculpture, but it would also be easy once the paper mache was dry, I'd be able to cut it in half and just pull the two halves apart. Because the clay was soft, there'd be undercuts, of course, but it wouldn't matter. The clay itself would deform, but it wouldn't make any difference. I would just put the clay back in the box and use it again for another project, and then put the two halves together. At least that's the theory. It should have worked. But because I made a mistake right in the middle, I can't get the paper mache off of the clay. The paper mache is not stuck to the clay at all, but it isn't sliding over the clay, so I can't pull the two pieces apart easily. I would have to cut it up, not into just two pieces like I made the cut here. I would have to cut it up maybe at least 4 pieces in order to get it apart. I would have to do a lot of prying and pushing and pulling, and the paper mache would not end up in the right shape when it was all done, and it would take a really long time to put it back together. So I'm considering it a fail because of that. It would just take too long. Actually, making it was really fun. I messed up, and I'm going to show you, where that mistake was so that you won't make that mistake. But also at the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do the next time. It's going to be a whole lot faster. It's guaranteed to work because I won't have to take anything apart, and the sculpture is going to be stronger. It's just going to work better than doing it like this. So let's go ahead and get started. I printed the mannequin head at 60%, and then I covered it with masking tape. I'm not really sure why I did that. I don't think I really needed to. And then I covered it with the Silky Smooth Air Dry Clay recipe, but without any flour at all. And I used just enough cornstarch to make it thick enough so that I could spread it. I wanted a paper thin layer, and I smoothed it off with a damp knife. Even with the really thin layer, it still dried really hard, and I was able to cover it pretty fast. I let it dry overnight, and then I sprayed it with the matte clear enamel. I don't think it was really needed, but on the other hand, it didn't hurt anything, and I had the can already. I used this Peppy brand of plastilina. I had never seen it before, but I ordered some, and I really like it. It's quite soft, which is what I wanted in order to move things around really fast. I was looking for a fast project. Didn't turn out to be one, but that's what I wanted. The problem with this stuff is that it comes in 24 tiny little packages, and you have to cut that plastic off every single one of them. I did not like that. I used about 12 of them to completely cover my mannequin head and do all the sculpting. So that was a lot of little packages I had to open, and a whole bunch of plastic I had to throw out. But other than that, I actually really like it. I did need to soften it up a little bit in the microwave. It was really cold in the house yesterday. If you do that, be super careful because the microwave heats things up in the middle first. So it's real possible to pick up some clay that you think is just slightly warm, and then find out that it's melted on the inside, and you could burn yourself really bad. So if you do put it in the microwave to warm it up, just do that for maybe 20 or 30 seconds at a time, and no more than that. Be really careful. I did take video when I was putting all the clay on there, making the nose and the eyes and all that, but I'm not showing you all that detail because it's kind of depressing to go through all the steps that went towards a sculpture that I don't get to keep. I will show you exactly how I sculpt the next one, because I'm very much expecting to have learned from all the mistakes I made with this one, and the next one should be a keeper. The plastilina is an oil-based clay, so paper mache should not stick to it. But just to make sure, I also covered it with some mineral oil or baby oil. It smelled really good. And then I tore really narrow strips of paper and completely covered the plastilina with at least 4 layers of paper mache. I'm using the paper strips and cooked flour and water paste. I used really narrow strips so that I could get around all of the curves, and I used a little knife kind of a thingy that I used for my sculpting. That was just to push the paper way down into the creases that show where his sad eyes are and his sad mouth. It took quite a long time to do this because the pieces were so small and because I needed so many layers. You have to have lots of layers if the sculpture is going to be completely hollow, and since I'm going to be taking the mannequin, well, at least I was intending to take the mannequin and the clay out of it, then the paper mache has to hold itself up without any kind of support. So it needed at least 4 layers. It took quite a long time. I made the first few layers with newspaper, and I went back over it with a couple of layers of brown paper. That's the brown paper from Amazon.com boxes, so it's really just unbleached newspaper. I let it dry completely in front of a fan. Then I cut it with a really sharp knife, and I was really super careful because box cutters are they kind of scare me, so I was really careful. I made sure that the knife was really sharp, and I cut it along the contour that seemed to be the highest, so that I should be able to just pull the 2 pieces apart, especially since I had oil over oil-based clay, and it just didn't work. I just couldn't pull it off. I couldn't even get in with my knife and pull the clay off with it because it just simply doesn't slide. Now, several years ago, I did make a video showing how to put plastic wrap over wet clay. It would work just as well for oil-based clay, and I just didn't think I needed it this time, but I did know how to do it, and I'll put a link to that video down below. It's really not hard, and it would have saved this sculpture. If I cut this into like 4 pieces, maybe, I would probably be able to pull it apart. But because it is not sliding on the clay, it's not stuck to the clay at all, but it's not sliding over the clay either. So I can't easily pull it apart without really digging in there, and it's just going to deform the paper mache. If I cut it down the middle of his nose and stuff, putting it back together would be a pain in the neck, and this one just isn't worth that kind of trouble, so I'm not going to do it. So if I did it again, I would definitely cover it with a really thin plastic. Then there would be no problem at all, I think, pulling the pieces apart. The clay underneath would deform like I had intended it to. So like if there was an undercut in the ear, it would just pull off the clay as I was pulling off the paper mache. Then I just take the clay out, put it back in the box, and use it again for another sculpture. So that would work really well, I'm pretty sure. That's how I made this African mask, and I will put a link to that video down below. Like I said, I didn't know how to do that. I just didn't do it this time. Oh well. Because I really like this clay, and because the mannequin really worked well, it was the paper mache part that didn't work, and that was totally my fault. But if you're just doing some fast character studies, you just want to learn about expressions, then this would actually work really well if I had just skipped the paper mache altogether. You can just take a picture of it or something so that you'll remember it, put it in your scrapbook, and then just make another one. But next time, I'm not going to use the clay. The process of putting all these layers of paper mache on the clay took a really long time. I was using tiny little strips, and I wanted at least 4 layers. The reason that I was doing it that way was because I thought it would save time if I could reuse the mannequin. Just make one mannequin, use the clay over it. I could reuse the clay for another project, and I could use the mannequin for another project. But the extra time putting the paper mache on there, because I had to put so many layers on to make it strong enough to stand up to handling when there's nothing on the inside supporting it. And that just, it really did take forever. It's kind of fun. It's really meditative putting those little strips on there, and I do actually enjoy using paper strips and paste, but I didn't save any time. Next time I'm going to use probably paper mache clay or a variation of it directly over the little mannequin. Leave the mannequin on the inside of the sculpture. Then there's no taking apart of anything. There's no possibility of that screwing up. And it's going to be a lot stronger because the mannequin is going to be inside supporting it. So that's how I'm going to do it next time. So I will put out another video about another character. I'm going to do it completely differently. I'm going to show you how it's done. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that one is going to work a whole lot easier, and it'll probably save me quite a few hours of time. So watch for it. If you're interested in using the mannequin, either to put your hats on or to make a little character study like I did, only one that works, you'll find it right here. Now, in the meantime, go make something and come visit me, ultimatepapermache.com. I'll see you there.